Ah, welcome back, my totally tubular sharkaholic. You caught us for the perfect time. We're gonna look at another shark movie for the Shark Scale Season 4. Today's movie is USS Indianapolis Men of Courage. This is an interesting one. This stars one of my favorite actors ever, Nicolas Cage, and well, I'm not too sure how much of a shark movie this is, but we're gonna find out by giving it a watch, and then I'll just tell you how it is. So let's just get right into it.
This movie is a little different. For the second time ever on this channel, I can finally say that it's actually based off a true story, the first being Open Water. The movie takes place during World War II and stars Nicolas Cage and his crew. Now, him and his crew man the USS Indianapolis, and the ship would be instrumental in the US winning the war. It sees them using the ship to covertly deliver parts of the atomic bomb that would be used on Hiroshima. After delivering the parts, the unescorted ship is actually sunk by a Japanese sub. Everyone on the ship is stranded out in the ocean on these rafts for days and have to contend with starvation, latitudes of unrest, and of course, sharks. When it comes to the premise and the plot, I mean, it's based on real life for the most part, so what's there really to say? Like, does the movie follow everything exactly to a T as how it did in history? Well, according to my history friends, some parts are a bit exaggerated, and some stuff was added in to make it more cinematic. Like, yeah, of course that's how it's gonna be. But for the most part, it's true enough to the true story. I actually quite liked the story. I liked where they headed with it. I liked the exaggerated effects and plot points as it made the movie not only more interesting, but it certainly emphasized parts of it that I'm sure were not this exciting before. Is it perfect? No, of course not. Is it good by basic movie standards? Well, I'd say it's passable, but for the shark scale, that's pretty good. I will say the pacing is decent enough for the most part, and most of the movie, yeah, the pacing is alright. It does drag on a little bit though, especially towards the end. It could have been a little less drawn out, but I can see what they were going for. It was a decently length movie, over the usual hour and a half, and I feel like they could have cut a little off, but that's just me. And while they do try to give a lot of personality and characters to these characters, I don't think it pans out really that well. Most of them don't really have very good arcs or just become pretty shoehorned in, all besides Nicolas Cage, of course. Everyone else is pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things, though. I couldn't even tell you how most of them end up. I just saw the movie also. But if I start to go more in depth about all the characters and motivations and all that, we're going to be here all day. So let's just jump ahead to the next part. I'll just say the story and the pacing was good for what it was, but it could have been better. The best part is when they're out on the water. You know why? Because that's where the sharks are. The sharks in this movie are easily the most unrealistic part of the movie, but possibly the best part of the movie. There's a lot of them, and they kill a lot of people in this movie. Let's break it down though. When it comes to how often the sharks are on screen, it's not the whole movie. The beginning part before the ship gets blown up, not a single one appears. Not one. And then obviously near the end of the movie, when they're off the ship, out of the water, there's not going to be any more there. But when they're in the water, they're sharks, and they're in the water probably like half the movie, so at least the sharks are there for like half of it. And I'd say the screen time is decent, but I understand that obviously the sharks can only be in so much. They can't appear in the beginning or the end. It just isn't possible. And with that in mind, I don't really have much of a choice but to say it was good. I mean, there's legit nothing else they could have done, so there's that. The sharks themselves look alright. I've seen better, of course, but it looked fine for what it was. It still is a relatively low budget movie. It's not indie, but I mean, it looks like something you'd see on like Sci-Fi as an SYFY. The animation was pretty stiff though. It gets a pass for me, but it didn't blow me away or anything. It looked alright though. Lastly was the kills. Obviously the kills are mostly rooted in reality. The sharks aren't going to fly into the sky here, but there are some unrealistic ones that are pretty good, like a good decapitation and the sharks munching up people. I thought they were pretty alright, all things considered. Again, with the historical context, it kind of limits what they can do with these sharks. And so I thought it was pretty good for what they had. I mean, they didn't really have much of a choice. Could it have been better, though? Yeah, but it was fine for what it was. Now let's talk acting. Obviously, Nicolas Cage, he's the main guy. He's going to have the best acting, but this was pretty meh, all things considered. It was just okay. It wasn't even one of Nicolas Cage's best, and doesn't even come close to some of his better work. He isn't even that memey either. He's just really kind of there. I mean, he just kind of goes through the emotions, it seems. I mean, the emotional parts seem generally lackluster and he feels very phoned in. And then there's everyone else. Everyone else can just kind of be summed up as meh. I mean, it was quite typical of any other B movie, where it didn't really seem like it was these actors and actresses' first time acting, but it was probably in their first 5 movies. Just not really all that much to them all around. It could have been better in a number of different aspects. I mean, it gets a pass, but just barely. The acting in general is very middling and meh as a whole. Alright though, let's wrap this up. What do I think of the movie as a whole? I think this was one of the better shark movies I've seen this year. I didn't feel like I wasted my time, and I generally enjoyed my time here. Was it amazing or superb? No, it wasn't. But it was actually pretty good for the most part. It had a good story, it had good historical context, and it had some nice sharks in it. I was pretty pleased. It could have been better in a few other aspects, but I was genuinely happy watching the movie with my friends, and I enjoyed it also. Now, can I recommend it? Yes, actually, I can. I can say if you want something a little different from the usual shark flavor, this is a good choice, and it's a unique enough movie that I can recommend it as a decent B flick. Nicolas Cage, despite the pretty middling acting, does actually prop this movie up quite a bit, even with that subpar quality, but I'd still say the movie is pretty solid. I mean, it is a solid little shark flick, and I enjoyed my time with it. So that's all that's really important, right? And so on the shark scale, I'm going to give this movie an actually pretty solid 4 out of 5. Like, I'm going to give it a pretty good rating. I liked it. I liked the movie. Wasn't like absolutely amazing. Didn't blow me away, but I liked it. So let me know in the comments what you think. Like, share, sub, all that good stuff. See you.